Trying to make sure. Good morning. Happy Monday. God woke you up. Okay. If you can see, I'm excited because this is the day that the Lord has made. I'm so excited to just be awake this morning. So excited. So, a few things. They're not really announcements, but it's something exciting for me. I have a logo for my ministry. My ministry is called The Well Women's Ministry. And it's so crazy because at first I was like, man, there are several ministries called that, and it was kind of discouraging me because I was, thinking maybe this isn't for me. But you know what? God met me at a broken place. And so I'm not about to let the enemy take that away from me. So I have a logo. I'm going to post it after this live, and we are going to go from there. But that is the only announcement that I have. Other than that, as you can tell by the title, we are going to be in Genesis 16, because like I said, I am walking through Genesis right now, just because there's a lot of history. It's the beginning. It's the first book in the Bible, and we would read these stories. Right, we read these stories. I'm trying to be better at looking at the camera because, like I said, I hate being in front of a camera, but I am not relying on my own strength, so I'm gonna start looking at the camera directly. Okay. Genesis is the first book of the Bible, and we would hear these stories in Sunday school, and they're real cute and innocent. But then as an adult, you are not drinking milk anymore. You're eating meat, as Paul has told us. So I really am diving in Genesis right now and really taking my time. I don't care if it takes me 3-5 months to get through it. I want to make sure I know what I'm reading, and it's on my heart to make sure that you know what you're reading. And disclaimer, I am no Bible scholar. I have the NLT version, okay? Okay? So I'm just going to put that out there. I am no Bible scholar. I am just somebody who loves Jesus and is hungry for the word and hungry for the truth. And that truth is in this book right here. Everything you ever need is in this book. And there are going to be some things that you do not understand. That's why I have a study Bible as well, so I know what I'm reading, because like I said, I'm not a Bible scholar. I'm no theologian. But ministry is on my heart, and I'm going to be obedient. So, as you can tell by the title, The God Who Sees, Genesis 16. I have my notes. I'm going to try not to be a PowerPoint person. I want to be very intentional while I'm talking to y'all. So there may be some things I miss. I do not care. So let's get into it. Everybody got their cup of coffee? Mine says coffee. Oh, look at all my coconut oil handprints all over this thing. Okay. So Genesis 16. Okay? So we know the story back in Genesis 15. Matter of fact, let's go to Genesis 15 for a little bit of context before we jump into Genesis 16. So I'm just going to read verse 1 through 3, because this is important, okay, to give a little context. So in Genesis 15, we see the Lord's covenant with Abram. Okay, before he became Abraham, his name was Abram. And then we're going to get into that next week when God changed his name to Abraham. So let's read. Sometime later, the Lord spoke to Abram in a vision and said to him, "Do not be afraid, Abram, for I will protect you, and your reward will be great." But Abram replied, "O sovereign Lord, what good are your blessings when I don't even have a son?" since you've given me no children, Eleazar and Damascus. I am so proud of myself. I said these names right. Okay, we're reconnected. Okay. On these names. A servant in my household will inherit all my wealth. You have given me no descendants of my own, so one of my servants will be my heir. Heir. Somebody help me out. Then the Lord said to him, no, your servant will not be your heir, for you will have a son on your own who will be your heir. So there's the promise. Covenant equals promise. Okay? Covenant equals promise. So we know the story of God's promise now. Here's a little context into Genesis 16, that Abraham will have a son. And Abram's response to the Lord is, how would I have a son? I am at old age. But how many of us know that God is not a man that he shall not lie, and nothing is too impossible for God? When he gives you a promise, and this is speaking to me because I am waiting on a promise myself, he will come through. So now we have a little context into Genesis 15. I'm getting a sip of coffee. So my son had a rough night. That's why I'm outside. I am letting him sleep in. Come for me if you want to. 7:30 a.m. I will let that boy sleep until 8. But anyway. So we see the promise that God gave Abram in Genesis 15. Now we're jumping into Genesis 16. Okay? Now Sarai, this is the title of this in chapter 16, is the birth of Ishmael. Who is Ishmael? We're about to find out. Now Sarai, Abram's wife, had not been able to bear children for him, but she had an Egyptian servant named Hagar. So Sarai said to Abram, the Lord has prevented me from having children. Uh-oh. Lack of faith. Lack of faith alert. Lack of faith alert. Go and sleep with my servant. So pause. Pause. God gave them a promise that he was going to give them a son. Okay? Sarai is Abram's wife. Why is she stepping out of the covenant by bringing someone else into their marriage? But in my Bible study, it said with tradition, tradition back then, you can have several wives. Someone correct me if I'm wrong. In Jewish tradition back then, you can do that in marriage. But we know in the beginning, God created a male and female. They created them. One. But after the fall of man, people started doing their own little thing and creating their own little stuff. That's what happened with the flood. But y'all know that. So why did she take it upon herself to bring someone else into that? Lack of faith. But I can't even look at her sideways, because I can't even look at Sarai sideways, because we can look at her sideways all day long, right? But how many of us decide to take things into our own hands because we think God is taking too long? We think God is taking too long. So we're going to take things into our own hands. Granted, she was barren. They are very old. I think at this point, they were over 100. Correct me if I'm wrong. But at a very old age, and they've been trying to have kids for a long time. So I can see the lack of faith. But when God says something, we got to hold on to his to his word. Okay, so let's go back to it. Perhaps I can have children through her. But did God tell her that? Did God tell Abram, I'm going to send you a child through your servant? Or did he say, I'm going to give you a child? I'm going to give you a child. I'm going to give you someone here. Did he say that I'm going to bring your servant into this promise? I don't remember him saying that. I don't remember him saying that. Taking matters into our own hands because of lack of faith. So, where did I go? Perhaps I can have children through her. And Abram agreed with Sarai's proposal. So it's not just Sarai who's in the wrong. Now you got Abram agreeing of stepping out of their covenant promise to create an Ishmael. Uh-oh. But see, we all do that. We all do it. I'm calling myself out. We all do it. God, I hear you. I know you're faithful. But it's taking a little bit too long. I know what you said. But I'm going to do it on my own strength. I'm going to do it on my own time because your timing, you're taking too long. So not only did Sarai, Abram heard the promise, and he still stepped out. This is why I'm reading Genesis, because we're seeing the firsthand the fall of man. We're seeing the fall of man, but God is still faithful. Okay? So Sarai, this is verse 3. So Sarai, Abram's wife, took Hagar, the Egyptian servant, and gave her to Abram as wife. This happened 10 years after Abram had settled in the land of Canaan. So Abram, verse 4. So Abram had sexual relations with Hagar, and she became pregnant. But when Hagar knew she was pregnant, she began to treat her mistress Sarai with contempt. This is why we don't bring somebody else. Listen. And this is somebody who didn't wait until marriage. So I can talk about this. This is why we don't bring someone else into our bedroom as married couples. Because now she became pregnant and she started treating, it said, she began to treat her mistress, Sarai, with contempt. Who was married to Abraham first? Ooh, Abram, before he became Abraham. Who was married to Abram first? Sarai. Now, Sarai is getting treated like the mistress. This is why we don't bring somebody else into our bedroom. But look at Sarai's response. Look at her response. Sarai said to Abram, "This is all your fault." Pause. Is it though? Is it all his fault? Whose idea was it to say, "Go and sleep with my servant, Sarai"? Sarai's idea was to step out of covenant with the Lord and create this mess. And so she goes to Abram and said, "This is all your fault. I put my servant into your arms. But now that she's pregnant, she treats me with contempt. The Lord will show who's wrong, you or me." But don't we all do that though? This is all your fault. When we decide to take things in our own hands, rely on our own strength, rely on our own understanding, we do what we want to do, get what we want, so we think right? Hagar did become pregnant, but now Hagar is treating Sarai with contempt, rubbing it all on her face. She probably around Sarai saying, "Look, ooh, I'm pregnant and you're barren. Oh, look, I can carry a child. I can carry a child." And back then, if you're not having children, there was something wrong with you in that tradition back then. So you can only imagine what Sarai was feeling. She probably wanted to say, "I regret this decision," but it's easier to point fingers at other people when you were the one who stepped out in the first place. Don't we do that with God, though, too? God, this is all your fault. How could you let this happen to me? You're supposed to protect me. You said that you were for me. But he never told us to make this decision. He never told us to step out of something that wasn't his original design. So all we can do is put the blame on ourselves. But it's easier to put the blame on somebody else. Just like Sarai. I'm pretty sure she knew deep down that this was a mistake. But Abram had a part of it too. He agreed to stepping out of the covenant because God gave him that covenant. He gave it to Abram first. Because we'll see later in chapter 18, we'll get there. In chapter 18, that's when the Lord appeared to Sarah and gave her the same covenant. Abraham knew, I keep saying Abraham. He's Abraham eventually. So but he's Abram right now before God changes his name. And I'm excited to go through that with y'all. But Abram knew the covenant. So it is part of Abram's fault. They're both at fault here. Because instead of waiting for the promise, waiting on the covenant, that's the same thing, waiting on God. Let's get real. We're waiting on God to come through on our behalf, just like he said. But he's taken too long, so we step out. Now we have created an Ishmael. We went through someone else to get to the promise. My God. Abram replied, "Look, she is your servant, so deal with her as you see fit." Now I start to get a little bit of, what's the word? Compassion for Hagar. Because it says right here, this is verse 6. I start having some compassion for Hagar because it says, "Then Sarai treated Hagar so harshly that she finally ran away." Can you imagine? You're an Egyptian servant. You're serving these people, right? Your master's wife, Abram, gave her to you as a wife, another wife, and you get treated harshly. I didn't ask for this. I'm just doing what you told me to do. Now, I'm getting treated harshly. I'm in some mess that I should have never been in the first place. And now I'm running away. I would have ran away too, because girl, I'm a servant. Now I'm a wife. Now I'm pregnant. And now I'm getting treated harshly. But God, verse 7, "The angel of the Lord found Hagar beside a spring of water in the wilderness." My God. In the wilderness, along the road to Shur. Somebody correct me if I am mispronouncing this. Shur. Shur. S-H-U-R. I'm just going to say Shur. The angel said to Hagar, Hagar, Sarai's servant, where have you come from and where are you going? My God. My God. So, in my study Bible, man, I wish I had it out here. In my study Bible, it said, it's believed that this was kind of a foreshadow of the Lord. Someone correct me, because like I said, I'm no theologian, but the angel of the Lord met Hagar. Come on now. Met Hagar beside a spring of water. There's something about the Lord meeting you along the spring of water. At water that, listen, that's why I've named this ministry The Well, because there's something about the well. And we're going to get into that too. There's so many, I don't want to say ideas, because this is not from me. There's so much the Lord is installing in me to start stirring up in women at wells. Because we see right here the compassion. This is why I have compassion for Hagar. She's in the wilderness. She's running away from the mess, trying to find something new. Hagar, Sarai's servant, where have you come from and where are you going? She said, I'm running away from my mistress Sarai, she replied. The angel of the Lord said to her, return to your mistress and submit to her authority. Ooh. I wouldn't want to if I was Hagar. This woman is treating me horribly. But check this out. Then he added, I will give you more descendants than you can count. Hold up. Didn't he say? Let's go back to Genesis 15. This is so good. Genesis 15. Verse 4. Then the Lord said to him, no, your servant will not be your heir, for you will have a son of your own who will be your heir. Then the Lord took Abram outside and said to him, look up into the sky and count the stars if you can. That's how many descendants you will have. So even though they stepped out of covenant, Hagar is the servant of Abram. He gives her the same promise he gave to Abram. I will give you more descendants than you can count. See, this is why when we think in broken people, God won't reach broken people. God won't use broken people. God still won't confirm a promise and keep his promise. He gave the same promise to Abram and Sarai and gave it to Hagar. But we're going to see what the difference is with this. Okay? Because Ishmael, his name, I believe, I think it'll show his name. His name means hostility. So even though there was a promise about more descendants, this descendant is going to be hostile to, and we're gonna come to know who Isaac is. They birthed an Ishmael before Isaac, so he's going to be hostile towards and the nations, because descendants, people, and nations are going to be hostile towards Isaac's descendants. Okay, so there's that right there. But God still made a covenant with this broken woman. And she was at the wrong place at the wrong time, but he still met her. Oh, this is so good. Verse 11, and we're going to stop here. And the angel also said, you are now pregnant and will give birth to a son. You are to name him Ishmael. Oh, wait. So it's not hostility. That's not his name. His name doesn't mean hostility, but it does mean, which means God hears. For the Lord heard your cry of distress. Okay, this is where I got the hostility from. Like I said, I'm no theologian. He did say to her, though, This son of yours will be a wild man, as untamed as a wild donkey. He will raise his hands against everyone, and everyone will be against him. Yes, he will live in open hostility against all his relatives. Okay? This is so good. So even though he gave a promise for more descendants to her, there is a bit of a consequence. There's going to be open hostility between Isaac's descendants and her son Ishmael's descendants. Isn't that crazy how the names are the same? Kind of. Isaac, Ishmael. But there's a reason why he's going to be hostile. And we're going to get into that. It's going to be a little later on. Yeah, we got some chapters to go before we understand why there is hostility between the two nations and the two brothers, the two siblings. Thereafter, Hagar used another name to refer to the Lord who had spoken to her. She said, "You are the God who sees me." She also said, "Have I truly seen the one who sees me?" My God, have I truly seen the one that sees me? So I just want to say, we're going to close with this. To the person waiting on a promise, to the person who stepped out, to the person who feels a little bit too far gone, God will still meet you. You'll notice once you really get in your word, the wilderness is where the Lord loves to meet his people in brokenness. If you're feeling broken, God will meet you. And that is his way of showing you that he sees you. Just like all this mess that was created because of lack of faith, God is so good and so faithful and cares that he still met Hagar in the wilderness and made her a promise that she will have more descendants than she can count. My God. And this is touching me right now. You're waiting for a promise. You're waiting for a miracle. When we see accounts like this, we see the God who sees us, and he really does care. I used to be that person that used to be afraid of reading the Old Testament because I thought God was this spooky, mean person that just wanted to tear down cities. But then when you see why he tore down the cities, we human beings can be pretty wicked because we tend to rely on our own strength. We tend to rely on... Sorry, my cat just distracted me. If you have a cat, you know, they crazy. We tend to just do things on our own. We tend to forget how good God is, and we want... It's always me, 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 me. I'm speaking for myself. This is something that the Lord just showed me about myself. It's always about me, me, me. And then something wrong happens and the first person I blame is God. I forget how... I get that little good little moment with him, and then you want to forget him the rest of the week. And then you're thinking that he doesn't see you. He doesn't care about your brokenness, even though I got myself in this mess in the first place. We just seen this account of him meeting Hagar in the wilderness, and she said, "This is the God who sees me." So God, I just pray whoever is listening to this, that you remind them that you see them and that you love them in their brokenness. midst of their questioning, in their midst of their doubts, God, you really do see them. You really do care for them. And God, we change. You never change on us. So God, I pray whoever's listening to this, that they just feel a sense of peace in knowing that you are able to get them out of their mess and meet them where they're at. If it's at the well, if it's in the wilderness, that God, you love them and that you keep your promises. In Jesus' mighty name I pray. Amen. I pray that you have the most blessed Monday. Read your word. Have your coffee. And enjoy the birds chirping. You know what? I take that for granted, man. I thought about that yesterday. Oh, and then I don't know why I was bringing tears to my eyes. There's nothing like, when your day is starting and you hear the birds chirping as the sun is rising. Just bask in that. There was a time where the earth was formless. It didn't have any light. God created all of this for us to enjoy. The original, we have dominion and authority over all of this. That was the first thing he gave Adam and Eve, the fall. And then God gave that covenant back to Noah after the flood. And so I just pray that you don't take that for granted either. Just the birds chirping. When you look at the leaves blowing. Man, I'm having a moment right now. He's so good. God bless y'all.